Join us for an enlightening experience where you will gain a deeper understanding of the purpose and essence of opening your eyes. This is your chance to enhance self-awareness and personal growth with a shift in perception that provides a fresh outlook on life. Embrace the journey from consciousness to superconsciousness. Coming live by Barrett Kunyan.
Well, here we are once again. Lovely Rob. Good to see you, brother. Really exciting to be in your beautiful presence. And what we'll be covering today on our today's topic on what does it mean to be a fully fledged human being. But before we go into that, if I can just introduce this beautiful t-shirt. I don't know if people can see that, but it says World Traveler Activator.net, and at the back it says Shoe Addict. And this was done by Violetta from Bulgaria and Venci. Thank you so much. And of course, my beautiful son, who was also behind it. So thank you very much. And I will be wearing that next time. I'm going to wear this to my birthday celebrations for tonight, which I'm really excited about. But anyway, coming back to our beautiful show today, and just to recap on the question, what does it mean to be a fully fledged human being? Brother, is it important that an individual who is a fully fledged human being be able to answer these 6 base questions, which is what, where, when, how, and who, and why we and all life exist? Maybe we can just touch on that a little bit today. And also we can talk about, how important it is to be happy and what does it mean? Because for me, when we define wealth of a country or an individual or a location, it's all about, are you happy? Because one can only raise their game and frequency vibration based on their level of happiness. And truly, for me personally, I would almost advocate to be a fully pledged on this particular day, sharing this beautiful space with you on these 6 base questions, because if one can answer these questions, then they truly are and have a gift. Brother, would you like to take away from from the subject of what does it mean to be a fully pledged human being?
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, to be happy or to be awakened, again, will always be based on your level of consciousness. So, but to be happy it's innate. If you're truly awakened and you can answer those questions, happiness is just it's innate. It's just like unconditional love. If you're one with the one mind or the creator, whatever you want to call it, you'll have that unconditional love. You'll know what it means. You'll become it. So, but to look at this, so to answer those questions, you've got to look at the 3 fractals again, to what it means to be a human and what human actually means. Because you got to remember, we were called man and just man for a long time, and human come along later on, or the way we describe a human. So we'll start with a cell. If we look at a cell, and you start there, and what it means to be man. Now, we all got to start with consciousness as well. We look at it from a consciousness point of view and understand that it is just consciousness. And no matter what you perceive on the outside, once you've raised your game, you'll realize that everything is just consciousness. And consciousness is light. So it's light simply resonating. So if you look at it from... Right, so we'll look at it from a creation point of view of a human on this plane and how that works, because then you include the cell. So once the cell's been fertilized, the consciousness or the covenant has already begun, because that's always good. Your covenant or your life script is going to be based, or the pledge is going to be based on your last life. So your last life coming through. And this is why you shouldn't judge people or judge things around you and trafficking and all this other bull, because that's all part of the script. So, as a cell, once you're created and consciousness is within the cell, it's simply the black light being divided into black and white, and then the white light being divided again, and that's the consciousness. So once the cell's created, the bubble of light that is you. There's so many fractals, you got to think of this at the same time. So your bubble, that's you, below the plane of inertia all the time since creation of this universe. That's resonating at a certain frequency. That's then projected. This is why everything is reflected. Your consciousness is a reflection. It is just reflected light. That's what it is. So once you understand this, everything's a reflection. You'll understand how everything's a reflection of you projected out. So your consciousness is reflected from below the plane. It's projected out into another bubble of water, which is you in the cell in the womb. Now, I want to cover something else here as well at the same time, because I was having a conversation with somebody who they know about the cell, but they don't see the cell as being a cell, which is extremely interesting. And because they look at the cartoons of drawings of cell that science gives you. And it was the same argument I had as like, well, cells don't look like that. If you just look at a cell, it simply looks like a liquid with little bits of the same stuff in it in bubbles. That's what it looks like. So you've got to question, why does it look like that when they show you drawings? Well, when you understand what a cell looks like on Earth. So like I say, you have to go to the Isle of Man and you can zoom in on a particular place in the Isle of Man, and you'll see that the cells or the cartoons that they draw are the same as the ones on land. The argument that this person was given is for why cells only look like cells when they're taken out of the body and it's dying, and that's when you can say it's a cell. Well, you got to. So what's a cell? You can't look at a cell like it's a cell. You've got to look at the cell as a torus. Only then will it make sense. And like I've said before, 1 and 1 simply equals a bigger one. So how would that work? So if we just cover this quickly, I can get rid of this thought in my head. So what is a cell? Well, a cell's a torus. So what does a torus do? The torus draws in energy and pushes it out to the bottom. That's basically what it does. But you also know when you're a cell in the human, or as a human growing, you get bigger. The cell gets bigger, or you get bigger. But remember, you're just a fluid and everything's light. So don't think it's like it's doing anything. All it's doing is dividing. That's all it's doing, and into separate parts within itself. So how would that work as a torus? So if you forget of a human looking like a human, and you just think it's a torus, and you're just projected light. So what's actually happening is you breathe in. This is the same for the plant. If you watch a plant and you wade to the soil of a plant in a plant pot, the soil doesn't lose any soil, but the plant will get bigger. So the question is, where's the plant getting its energy from, and what's it using to grow? You can go with micronutrients. Well, it's not enough micronutrients for the plant to grow. It still doesn't make sense. There's only one other way to do it, to explain it or to understand it, and this is how I understand it. You draw in breath, the gas. Now remember, gas is simply melanin fluid as a gas. So it's thinner. Just think of it all like a liquid. It's all liquid. And we breathe in the gas. So what do? Well, we're just like a still. So we distill the water. So what's happening is you're breathing in the gas. The gas is getting compressed again. And as it's being distilled, you're taking in the gas and it's cooling down and it goes back to a fluid. So you're drawing in melanin gas and turning that gas into a fluid. And that is how you would grow, or how you draw in energy and make it into a fluid again. It's simply distilled fluid. And then it'll get to a certain size and it won't get any bigger because it's based on a resonance and wave height. And your vessel won't get bigger than the resonance of the waves that created the cell that's below the ground, if that makes sense. So that's how I explain what a cell is. Don't think of it like it's like what science would show you. It is simply a fluid resonating and then dividing based on a cymatic pattern that's in the center. There isn't anything really happening. And then those bubbles that are in the center will then stick together, and the light being projected from below will create the image, which creates the effect of you. You're just in a hologram or a projection, or maybe reflected light. So that's how a cell's created. So to get that out of the way, so what's it like to be a human as a cell? So you go to chromosomes. So chromosomes in a cell. So this is, again, you've got to just accept these are facts, because you can't look at a cell and say these things. I can't say these things. This is just doing research and to understand what the words mean and to understand the overall. So you start with a chromosome, and when I look at a chromosome, I look at it and I goes, well, this is what they say. It's how you make a man and a woman. So XX is a woman and XY is a man. Well, I don't say it like that. I say, well, the top part of the X is your arms. The bottom half represents either a vagina or the penis. So the Y, the leg of the Y would be the penis, and the other way that would represent the vagina. So I look at the chromosomes as man. So if man are the chromosomes, and that's the only thing that's in a cell, and all it is they call it chromatin or something like that. And it's supposed to be DNA, just like a spaghetti in the bottom of the cell. But that can't be the case, so it has to be the DNA we know as frequencies. So the resonant frequencies that are stored in the cell, just there. Science calls it DNA. That then clumps together and it twines around itself, and that's what creates a chromosome. If you look at a chromosome, what science says, you're looking at it and it's just twisting and twisting and twisting and twisting. So you've got a rope and you keep twisting it and twisting it and twisting it and twisting it. It will become thicker and thicker and thicker, and you have twists within twists. So that's all it is, and it becomes dense. So that's basically what you are. So if you think of a human as the chromosome, so the chroma is the color, and the sum, if you look at the word sum, it means body. So that's you. So a hue, man, and the man part of the vessel, the hue is the color, the tone. Well, we know man means mind, so the vessel is the mind. That's another thing we need to focus on as well. Brain cells in the body. People shouldn't look at the brain as a separate part of the body. Just think of the whole vessel as the brain. In the brain separate. There's brain cells in the heart. There's brain cells in the head of the penis. Yeah. So when you think of a cyrus, you've got to remember that it's a consciousness. Well, that's getting to it when we get to being a man or what's being to be human. So as a chromosome, the chromosome has a centromere. Now we're going to say the centromere is the heart of the chromosome. It's the very center of the X. That's where the centromere is, and the centromere, I would say, is the heart. The first 3 stages of a cell. So this is just by like consciousness being in the womb for us. So the first 3 stages: Moon, Mercury, and Venus. In a cell, they're the first 3 stages in the cell cycle. There's 7 altogether, and they represent the luminaries. The first 3 stages, like I say, are in the cell. So, in the womb, or consciousness within the womb. So those 3 stages, there's only one centriole. The centriole, which took a while to work out what the centriole was and how it works. So the centrioles, because there's 2 of them, are the sun and the moon. In our reality, we would say it's the sun and the moon, or the pineal and the pituitary gland, or pineal and the pituitary gland. So what happens in the cell? There's only one, and they're called daughter cell. I think it's when it divides, it's called a daughter or a sister cell, something like that. It's not quite right, but anyway, that's what they say. So it divides at the 3rd stage. So there's only one. So in the first 3 stages of the cell, there's only the moon, or the sun and the moon as one. It hasn't divided, and it's undivided because everything's one. There's no division at that point. You're only using the subconscious. So you haven't got duality. So all the way through the womb reality of consciousness, it's unity until birth, and then you get the 2 eyes, and you get division, left and right, up and down, and hot, cold, and duality, basically. So when the consciousness is in the womb, it's projected out, like I've said before, into an animal. So for the chromosome, when we go back to a cell, what happens in the chromosomes is in the 3rd stage, or the 4th stage, after the 3rd stage, one of the centrioles separates, and they go to either end of the cell, and then they've got microtubules. So what are the microtubules in our reality? Well, the microtubules are flux lines. Once the centrioles are separated, they join with these flux lines, and these flux lines are attached to the chromosome, the centromere of the chromosome. Now, where the chromosomes, then the centromere is our heart, and the sun and moon are connected to our heart. That's why we're controlled by the sun and the moon. That's how we get our resonant frequencies from. So it's the zodiac gives their frequencies, to the planets, and the planets give their frequencies to the sun and moon, and then they project it to us, and we get it as light information. And that's how I say the resonant frequency is being projected. So in a cell, it's the centrioles that control the chromosomes, and near the end of the cell cycle, this is the great migration. What's going to happen near the end, or the end of this year, or the beginning of next, hopefully. Well, it should do if the patterns are correct. So the centrioles separate. They're attached with these microtubules, which we'll say is flux lines, magnetic flux lines, are attached to your heart, and they take the chromosomes to they say it's the equator of this cell. So they take it to the center of the cell, and then they're torn apart during cell division. So half goes one way and half goes the other. So what would that mean to us? Well, that's the end times. We don't quite get the cytokinesis. Cytokinesis is the cell division, but that's within the cell. So that'll only happen within the universe. So cell division, just like in your body, will carry on until you die, then cell division stops. So that's the same as the universe. So as soon as the universe has reached the ninth level of consciousness, it dies, or what we class as death, and then it regenerates as a new consciousness and it starts over. So from our reality, that's the end times. So from a cell, it's the cell cycle can only have separation within the cell. This is based that there's only one universe. If there's only one universe and we haven't got a multiverse, then this is how it has to work. And like I say, there's only 3 different kinds of cell death, and I think it's, if I remember correctly, it's called autophagy is the one that the description of autophagy sounds like the cell death that the universe should go through. It's where the cell collapses, but it stays intact, and then it can start up again. So that's where I think it is. If I remember that correctly, don't quote us on that. You'll have to look it up. I'm pretty sure that's what it was called, though. So then we'll go we can understand from a cell, that's the cell cycle right through from the creation of it to the end. We've got the 9 levels of consciousness, or the time of consciousness within the cell. So though it might only last however long a cell lasts, it could last a few days, it might last 7 days, I don't know, 7 weeks, however long a cell lasts in the body, being whatever it's being, before it gets regenerated into something else. And that's the other thing. When I looked up the other day, how does the lymphatic system get rid of dead cells or dead resident cells? People can argue this if they want, and say cells don't exist, it's always mucus, and it's always the same thing. But we'll know that these things happen. So the only build-up I say that the cells are in the body is slime. I don't necessarily say we've got have cells like that and we'll get rid of dead cells. I personally think it's only slime or lime, and that's just calcium carbonate. That's personally what I think it is, but I could be wrong. But anyway, moving on. We'll go from, so that's a cell cycle. So we'll move on to man. So what's it like to be a human? So the same thing again, go from the cell cycle. The first stage is, then you get projected out in this reality as cells or animals when you're in the womb. Now, how that would work, I'm not quite sure, because you can only guess. But I would say if you are, because you've got good and bad in anything, you can have a good animal or a bad animal. And I don't know how that would actually work. I've never seen an actual bad animal that hasn't been influenced by something that makes it, or it's had its experiences made it or led it to where the way it has. Now you could argue that and say that was always going to happen, and part of its life script and fate. So if we go with that, then it was always going to happen. But like I say, your experiences as animals will then be dictated as a consciousness for your life script at birth. No matter, I mean, it's just so hard for people to accept, but you have to understand how karma works. Your life when you're birth, whatever the life script is, so you're gonna repay your karma. Now this is where I'm gonna want to just touch on a subject I saw. I watched the video yesterday, and it's shocking as it is, and as bad as it is, because I do say it like that, but I've got to understand it and then think, why would that happen? So it was a mother and father that had beat their own like newborn. He wasn't even a toddler. He might have been a toddler, but like severely beat him, and he ended up dying. And I was sat with Kitty, and we were both saying why, and how does these things happen? But then when you go into your Godhead and you start working it out, and I'm like, well, that child, if you just look at the child and you think it's innocent, and you go, that's shocking, it's bad, it couldn't even defend itself. So my brain went back, well, what kind of life would you have had before that to become that child? And then I thought, what if that child was a reincarnation of Jimmy Savile and was paying back karmic debt? Or any other one of the crazy psychos that were out there? How do you know that their karmic debt isn't to come back as his child and to be abused? Because that's what they did. So now they've got to know what it's like to be abused. If you're the abuser, that's how I see karma working. So whatever you do, you're going to have done to you. And it's not a punishment or a good or bad thing. Remember, if you're just a consciousness without a vessel, you will crave to have feeling. And it doesn't matter what the feelings are. It's irrelevant. I think consciousness will yearn to feel. Just like when you are a vessel, you yearn to get rid of the heaviness. You yearn to get rid of the backaches and the feelings and the bullshit of the story, and you yearn to go back home. It's simply, if you go somewhere and then you miss home. So it's just simply missing home. That's what it's like. So you would miss being here and being in this physical world and feeling love and feeling hate, but to have those intense emotions, to have those feelings is what the soul will yearn. That's why you come back. Otherwise, you just go, no, I'm not going there. It's shit. it hurts. And you wouldn't want it. But as a consciousness, remember, you're just the one mind. Everything's the one mind. The pain and suffering is not real. It's just an experience. And it can be any experience you want. And once you understand, once you awaken and you listen to the pledge, or you fully fulfilled the pledge that you said you would. And that is, to be who you're supposed to be, which is the creator, the one mind, to not have any judgments. You remember how it is and what it is. Now, again, at what point would this happen in her life? And so if I look at my mom's death, so at the end of her life, she had reached Saturn. So I asked Kitty this morning, I don't know how this would work, and it might work as I'd have to look into it, but it's a new thought and I might follow it. So would Saturn, I think Kitty said it would be in the 8th house, because the 8th house is death, apparently. Now, that would make sense because it's the planets again, and you get to the 8th planet, or the 9th one, and it's death. Or the 9th planet could be going through the death process at the very end. But it depends when Saturn is, and if Saturn was in one of the latter houses, whenever death is there, then Saturn is going to be the death process. So my mom was going through Saturn, and then you've got the other spheres of influence, which I personally think is the death process. And what does that mean? Well, my mom went into hospital, she knew who she was, but that'll be her going through Saturn at that point, and then she'll go through the other luminaries of consciousness, or spheres of consciousness, and that's when you actually remember who you are as an individual in the death process. The only reason people have awakened now is because it was the end of Saturn's reign. So once Saturn ends, we'll go through the death process. And then we are the consciousness of Gaia. So Gaia's going through the death process through Saturn. So she's dying. That was the memories I had, or the feelings I had when it was a year after my mom's death. She had died. And it's an emotion that goes when somebody's dying. There's a resonance with death, and you feel it. You'll feel it, and you're letting go of them, but you'll feel that sadness, and it's around you. But once they go, that feeling usually lifts after a while. But because I was focused on the earth at that time, and focused on Gaia and what's going on with the earth, it felt like the earth was dying. Then I realized the feeling I had a year later after my mom's death, I should have got over it by this point. I knew where she was, and knew about consciousness. I was like, why am I still feeling this? And it was because it was the earth. I realized the earth was dying. And at that point, I'm like, oh shit, we'll have to save the earth. And I kept going with the thought, and then I realized, no, you can't save it. It's going through the death process. It's dying. And it's like, this is why I don't know how much you're supposed to bring people back. If you've still got lessons, I suppose, then yeah, you should come back and finish your lessons. Part dying and coming back will be part of your life script. So I can't judge things and saying they're right or wrong. But you got to look at it and you go, would I want to be brought back? If I died, would I want somebody to bring us back? Knowing what I know, I would say no. I don't want to be brought back. Unless it's the end, and then maybe. We've only got 13 months. I think it'd be a waste if I went now and didn't make it to the end. So, what was I saying? Yeah, the reason people are remembering now was because Saturn's like, or the death of the Earth is happening. So now we're going through the death process. And in that death process, The consciousness, Gaia's consciousness, that's us, will remember who, or Gaia will remember who she is. Just like I have, just like you are, and everybody else who's awakened are going through that exact same process. I just went through it really, really quickly by asking those 6 main questions about creation. And as soon as you've worked creation out, you know the base pattern, you've got the foundation of thought. But if you have not got that foundation, if you haven't worked out what creation is, and it's simply talking about consciousness within a cell, any cell, and you understand the torus, if you haven't got that, your level of consciousness, all your answers will only get to a certain level. Until you've got to the 9th level of consciousness, you've got to understand the creation. You need to fully understand the creation story and what it's talking about, and consciousness and all the rest of it, resonance and sound and frequencies and the wave of 7 hertz. Once you understand those and you can explain it simply, because if you can't explain it, it means you don't know it. You might understand it, but you don't know it. You'll only be able to explain it once you know it. You'll know it because you've become it. So there's a massive difference between understanding something or hearing it from someone else and then you knowing it yourself. You'll only know you know it when you can explain it. And the only reason to explain it is because you can see it. And you will not be able to explain it if you can't see it in your head. So if you can't see the torus and how it works in your head, you will not be able to explain it. And if you can't explain it, you don't know it. And so many people claim to know these things, but then you just ask them the base questions. You ask them the base questions and see what they answer. And you always start with creation. So what does creation mean? And if they can't answer the creation, you know anything else that's coming out of their mouth is not correct. Well, it is correct at a level of consciousness. But you start asking questions that are above that, they will not be able to answer them. They won't. They'll say, well, I don't know. Nobody knows the answer to that. Or only God knows, or something like that. That's what they'll say because they've not got there. So this is why all I want to focus on, I want to have conversations with people who have a big audience, who are claiming a lot of things that aren't true. And if they are honest with themselves, they'll come on and just not. I don't even want to debate. Or they can start and they can say what they claim. And all I'll do is ask questions. That's all. And I 100% guarantee they won't be able to give the answers. And it'll show that they're a false prophet. And the false prophet's not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. But in the end times, everybody needs to know the truth. The whole truth. There's no good saying the end is 2040 if it's not. Because people think there's this massive gap, and that gap is not there. The reason I can say this is because the patterns aren't mine. The patterns are our life. The patterns are the luminaries, and astrology doesn't tell lies. It doesn't. The stars don't lie. Once you understand the Taurus and you understand the 9 levels of consciousness, and you understand, you can see it. You understand that once that luminary's gone out the way and it's had its turn, and that's all all astrology is talking about, all these stories, that's all they're talking about, because these luminaries are consciousness. They give them names and characters, but they're just consciousness. That's all they are. And they're a wavelength, they're a resonance. That's all it is. And those resonances are in a gas. So to be a fully pledged human is to remember at the end times who you are. And the only way to do that is to know what you're not. So you're not going to make it to 2040. 2040 is not a thing. If people are saying it's based on this pattern, you go, well, okay, how you added in 1,000 years that aren't true? How you added in that 1,000 years that they've just made up? Did you add in Saturn's reign and then Jupiter's reign and Mars's reign and the sun's reign when they have their reign at the zenith? These things are really simple. So you can get rid of all the bull very, 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 very easily. But as you're showing simple drawings or the images that he's created, they show how it works as a sphere of consciousness. Once you understand what the spheres of consciousness work, we've got to work on a couple of more images that will show within the image, you'll be able to see how it works. That's what you need to construct. That's hard because it doesn't exist at the minute. And there's loads of different drawings to explain consciousness, the universe, but to show how it works in an image without me having to explain it, that's hard. But we'll get there. We'll get there. And that's why the 9-step pyramid, once we recreate that and put all the information in, that image alone should have enough for anybody who's awakened to know the truth. But you've got to be honest and not lie to yourself. So many people still lie. This is unreal. And when I mean this, when I'm saying when people lie, it's constant. And people do it all the time. They don't even know they're doing it. And the only person you're lying to is yourself. So even so, when people are going out and it's this and this is my truth and all of this, and you're just telling lies. You're just going from the ego perspective and the ego point of view, and it's nonsense. The truth's all over and it's everywhere. But unless your eyes are open, you won't see it. So what? So once you answer those 6 questions, like I say, those 6 base questions: what am I? Who am I? Where am I? It's easy because it's the one mind's the answer to all of those questions. But you can't just say it's the one mind's the answer because people are going, well, what does that even mean? So you have to be able to explain it all so it makes sense to people. So I don't claim to be clever, or well, I do because I claim to be the one mind, and the one mind's brilliant as far as I'm concerned. I don't get how something that doesn't do anything does everything. The biggest paradox of it all is it boxes my head, but I'm amazed by it at the same time. Even though I know this is real, it feels extremely real. That's the power of the ego. But the ego, again, this is just a false deity. And people keep saying to me, but Rob, this is your ego. You're still living an ego life. And you're like, no, there's a massive difference. I'm being, but I'm not a human being. So a human, again, so okay, if we go back to what it means to be a human, and why do we use the word human? So people just need to accept some simple facts. So everybody starts in Africa. You can argue all you want, but if you do, you're simply mistaken. It's simple. Once you add in the labyrinth, or many people would have seen these lawn mazes, or a hedge maze in big manor houses in England. They've got these mazes. And I watched a program about these mazes once, and the man was saying, who knew all about these mazes, he kept it up a scratch and that. He says that it was old. It was an old tradition or something like that, and it was based on. It's based on life and how you go into the maze and you go to this. You're trying to get to the center, and every time you go near it, and then you go further away, then you go near it, and you come back out. It's you getting near the creator and then coming away from it. And I was amazed that this was on this just a normal program, but it was. I knew that I was being shown this, so I could understand what the labyrinth was. So I already know that the labyrinth is a flat plane, and it's the center plane of your head, and you're supposed to go around that labyrinth. But that, again, it's a 2D image. It's supposed to be based on a 3D image. So the labyrinth is 3D. So once you understand that the labyrinth is simply a tube, just like your stomach. Your stomach is the feminine consciousness, the feminine brain. It's just a tube. Now look at a picture of a brain. You'll see the brain looks like sausages just rolled up. And that's what it actually is. It's just a tube. You won't be able to chop the brain up and see it because you just chopped it and now you can't see it. But it'll be a tube. So consciousness will go in one way, flow around the brain, or we'll call it cerebral spinal fluid, flows around the brain, and your consciousness is within that fluid. So it's the resonance within that fluid, and it goes around the brain, or Gaia's brain, and you're going towards the center, and then you're going away from it. The importance of knowing this is, so what's the center? Well, the center is the singularity point. The center is the black dot. Everything is melanin, right? So the darker the hue of a man, the closer to the center you are. Africa was in the center. Africa's the heart, right? So if you're flowing from away from the center, remember, you get lighter. Now, once you know that the Chinese, I watched a video the other day, the Chinese, I think, were the Ethiopia. There was an Ethiopian tribe, and they went to the east and they went to China. All China are from Ethiopia. All of them. We've got the images of these. I watched a video and I'm like, well, that explains that. I'd seen this before because of Buddhism. And if you look at Buddhism and you look at all these characters that are around the world, you'll notice that they've all got big lips and black features, which is quite strange. Well, the Buddha is actually the brain, but I won't get into that. So, yeah, and there's another, I think it's Korea. Was it Japan? Oh, God, I can't remember Japan or Korea. Maybe Japan. I'm not sure now. But they were from the Yoruba tribe in Africa. So, you know, all Asians are just Africans. The same as Native Americans, the Indians, all that. They're all black. Everybody's black. So people just need to get in their head that everybody's black. There is no white people. There's no yellow people. There's no red people. Or there's no blue people or anything. Everybody's black, right? So everybody starts in Africa or ancient Kemet. And everybody's spread out consciously, just like in the brain. When you're in the brain and in the womb, the consciousness is in this small area, and then you're birthed, and boom, the brain lights up, and consciousness spreads around the brain. That's when mankind went around the world and started spreading out. Now, this is how I say why you get white. Now, people would like to argue, why we go white people? there's probably only 4 different hues of man, and I base this on an Indian, not prophecy, but Indian oral tradition, if you like. And they were saying that there's, I don't remember, the black man or the black hue was in charge of water. Chinese or the yellow man or the hue was in charge of, they must have been in charge of air. The Indian or the red was in charge of earth. And the white man was in charge, the white hue was in charge of fire. So if the white man was in charge of fire, then you understand electricity and the combustion engine and all of that. That's why he came around that. I remember looking at things in ancient Egypt and they used water, which would make sense because you use water pressure and air pressure to move things. So all hydraulics and all that were just done by water and just tubes. And genius. But the same, you can achieve the same things using all these different elements, all the different fundamental elements. You'll create or generate energy. Like you can use the earth and generate energy from the ground. I mean, it's energy running from the ground all the time. You need wires to do that. The same for the air. I mean, that atmospheric pressure is always there, and it's just a soup of energy or resonant frequencies. So all you can get this energy based on all this. But obviously, when the white man comes along, it's Saturn's time. So what does that mean? So why did you get white man? So okay, the last pole shift, when the consciousness, the north was frozen. Now, when they say the north's frozen, I mean the whole of the north is frozen, right down into England. So everything's frozen. So what happens when you go to a cold climate? This is what happens. You notice all man was darkest in Africa, and as you spread out, you get a lighter hue. Why? Remember, the spheres of the circles on the flat plane represent not a globe, but represent the brain. So at the top is the north is in the center, but that represents the top. So when you get a pole shift, the bottom of the brain's enlightened and the top will freeze and the bottom's enlightened. So when the north's frozen, the outside ring, or what we'd call the south pole, or the south ring, the ring around the outside, that becomes unfrozen and land again. So what would happen to the people in the north? Well, all the black men that went north become white. Why is that? You just haven't got enough sun. It's as simple as that. There's just not enough sunlight there. You're not getting the sun that will create the melanin in the first place that you're using, creating. Remember, it's all based on frequencies and then drawing in them frequencies for your breath. So what happens if you're in a cold climate or there's not much sun there? And people can argue this, but again, I just use patterns. So I use 3 different animals: the polar bear, the Arctic fox, and the Arctic hare. All 3 animals exist elsewhere on the earth as a different color, and only white because they're north in snow. People will go, oh, it's because the sun's doing this, not blah, blah. But I just think it's resonant frequencies, and the resonant frequencies from the sun are low in the north, so you can't use that energy. So your skin becomes, you got to cover your skin anyway because you're cold. Yeah, so we'll go with the human. We're not going with animals, but animals will always change their coat. The coat changes hue in the summer months. People call it camouflage. Well, I'm just saying there's more sun there. So isn't that they're choosing to change so they can catch animals? They're changing because the sun's now there, and they can get more sun, and it can change the hue of the fur, and then it just happens to be the hue of the ground as well, so they can blend in. So that's why you'll change color, or things will change color when you get the cold areas or there's less sun. There's less sun, the lighter the hue will become because you're further away from the center. Yeah. So just think of it like that. And remember, the sun's only a projection from the black sun that's below the ground anyway. And that's where the blackness comes from. That's why ancient Kemet meant black lands. It's not what people think it is. And they keep thinking, oh, it's because there was some fucking ash coming down and the whole land was covered in black ash. That bull. No, it's because that's the center. And at the center, you've got the black dot. The black dot is the creator. So you can explain why you go north and the white man became, or the hue of man became white, is you simply cover up. Even I, in winter, change color. I get wrapped up and I'm wearing clothes all through the winter. So for a good length of the time of a year, my skin's covered and it gets lighter. It's not blotchy, but you can see the different little circles, which would be little tortoises, we'll call them, all over you, and they'll become lighter. Little dark ones and lighter ones, and all over you can see it. It's like freckles, but they're not freckles. But then in the summer, it all joins up and becomes one nice dark hue. That would happen with everybody. So the white man or the Mediterranean, let's say the white man in the Med, it's got a golden hue to the skin. They're not necessarily white, but no one's white anyway. No one's black, but you know what I mean. We'll go with what people say. But you'll notice that they've got this hue and they don't burn. Now, if you took someone from the north and just stuck them in the Med, right, they would burn pretty quick because the sun's hot there and the skin hasn't acclimatized to it. It takes time for that. That's why you won't get a black man going, like I live in Newcastle, I don't just go white. But if I stayed here for a few generations, the hue will get lighter and lighter and lighter. That's simply people go, oh, it's because you're having sex with people from around the area. Well, you could say that, but you could also say it's just getting less and less sun over time. So then you can understand why the black man becomes black, or why we've got these different hues of man around the body. Now again, these broke up into 4 parts of the brain: the front, the left, the back, and the right. Now if you go to 4 parts, you'll know there's only 4 hues to man. What we class the yellow, the red, the black or the dark, and the white. They're the 4 hues. They're for the 4 parts of the brain. And you know, anyway. So that's how you get the 4 parts, or how you get the different hues of man. So again, people need to get out the head that someone's better than some fucker else, because it's not the case. You're you, and you've been the black man, and you've been every other colour, because you keep going away around the brain. Every time you get the other side of the darker hue, when you go away, back, and going away and coming back, and that's simply why. And you can work all this out if you really go into the depth of it, and to work out what parts of the brain the zodiac represents, what part of the brain, and then you work out what part of the brain you're projected from. You'll understand why you choose the way it is, and everything will make sense. So what it means to be a fully pledged human, to be a fully enlightened human, or to fulfill the pledge that you've took, this is the part where I'm like, well, you can't lie. Yeah, so you won't say things that are untrue. You won't make claims that are untrue. You won't claim to be this. You won't claim to be that. You won't claim to be a guru. You won't claim to be. All you're claiming to be is the one mind, or the creator. That's all you're claiming to be. And the reason for that is because that's the truth. That's the true you. And anything else that a human claims to be is a lie. It's just simple as that. You can claim to be many things. Oh, I'm a policeman, or I'm a teacher, or I'm a guru, or I'm enlightened. Well, no. To make any of those claims is an egoic claim. So if people are starting to say things like, well, they say lots of things, but even if you say you're one, one with everything, that's fair dues, because that's where I think most people try to get to anyway. They try to get back to the oneness, and that's just the end of duality. Well, the only way to get the end of duality is to realize everything's one, but there's still levels of consciousness above that. Oneness is just like the end of Saturn. To realize everything's one is the next level, but there's still another 2 levels above that. So there's more information about who you are, and to be the true you is to get right at the top of the pyramid, to become the one with the whole universe, or the black dot. But you've got to go up for that. The highest level of frequency, and remember, we're just in the Taurus, so that the highest level is the middle, because that's the one mind. But we're in the Taurus, so it's been separated, so you've got to get to the top. And all that is consciousness. So there's the cerebral spinal fluid, or raising the kundalini, and all this other chat that people talk. It's happening all of the time. You can't sit there and then just have a pineal moment and awaken. It doesn't work like that. It's all part of fate, and you're going to do it at a particular time. As soon as you start self-inquiry, as soon as you ask questions about yourself, that is your awakening. So one question is about, because I wrote a post or spoke in a video, how if you haven't awakened by 2019, it's too late. That's based on the book of Ezra, where some soul wants to save another soul, and God says, what have they done in the last 5 years? It doesn't matter what they've done throughout the whole life. What have they done in the last 5 years? Well, the last 5 years was 2024, was the end. It's 2019. And what I interpret what God was asking is, how much does that soul know who they are? What have they done for themselves in the last 5 years? How much have they awoken? And obviously they won't have awoken in the last 5 years if they haven't asked any questions about themselves. And then it's too late, because you haven't got enough time for the self-inquiry. It's at least 5 years, which are going to be the planets, not including the sun and the moon, which is your conscious and subconscious. So in the last 5 years, you've got to get through all those planets within you of levels of consciousness. And the only way to do that is by asking and answering questions. but you've got to look for the patterns to answer the questions correctly. You don't just come up with, well, you can do, most people do, they come up with some fanciful idea of what they think it is. So, yes, to answer the questions, the 6 base questions, and like, who are you? Various levels of answers for that. You could say I'm a soul, but it's nonsense. You're none of those things. All of those claims are egoic claims. So to realize you're not real, to realize that this is a dream, to realize there's no good and bad, and any judgment will create karmic debt. So please, people, remember the video that's been brought out, that new movie about the trafficking of kids. Again, who made that movie? I've seen clips of it. It looks like a Hollywood movie to me. It doesn't look like a documentary at all. It just looks like a Hollywood movie based on a true story. So what's true? What makes something true? Well, within law, true, you need 3 people to agree to something. That's the Holy Trinity. So you need 3 people to agree to something that's true. 2 people can't come to something that's true, because one person could deny it and then the other person say, oh. So you need 3, and then it can have a ruling body. So, so you go to look in the legal system, and you look up the word human, and what does it mean to be human? And it's got a monster. Now, again, from an egoic perspective, you think, the cheeky bastards, they look at us like monsters. Is that how they're going to treat us? Well, what's your understanding of the word monster? Monster, M-O-N, is moon, and S-T-A-R is star, moon star. So it's telling you the truth. You are a moon star. To be a human is to be a moon star. The moon is to be the created, and you are a star. That's what you are. So you are a moon star or a monster. So the human is a moon star. So it's not wrong. They're telling the truth. But again, it's the definition of the words, the meaning of the words, behind the words. And you only get these true meanings when you get to the beginning and realize it's only about the penis, the vagina, Osiris, the Holy Mary, Pandora's box. They're all referring to the same thing. And when you're looking at words, you've got to understand it's based on Shakespearean speech. Shakespeare was all about slang. So I watched just yesterday, right, and I was astounded at this, because we don't usually watch the television, but we put the television on, and we're watching it was in the background, and it was the British Carry On movies, the black and white one. It was Carry On Constable. And I'm like, oh, God, I can't be bothered with this. But then you listen to it, and I was pottering around doing other things. Kitty was doing her drawings. And when I'm like, did he hear what he's just said? And one of these constables who's into astrology. And I'm like, going, oh, God. And I'm hearing different things now. And then he shared the play on words. Like, what was it? It's an unwanted visitor, and she's got no... We've had a phone call from, and it was a play on words with the name, the name of the woman that was supposed to be phoning in, and she's got some intruders in her back passage. She's got some intruders or something. Or some, what was it? Oh, there's something suspicious in the back passage. Now again, when you sound, it's a comedy, but it's a play on words. The back passage is an anal passage, and this is something suspicious. And it was all the way through the film. And then you realize you hear all this Shakespearean speech, the play on words. And don't forget, it was about constables. Now, if you get deep into the word constables and public and private, and you use the play on words, so that could mean pubic. Public is like pubic. I've got public hairs, but you call them pubic hairs. Yeah, I've got public hairs. That's very close, though. Why do they call public and pubic? And then when you go private, you have privates. You have the private area. If you look at the word private, it's something you want to keep secret. Why do you want to keep it secret? Why is it hidden? Do you know what I mean? So once you look into these words and you realize, again, it's Shakespearean speech. When you want to keep something private, it's because it's hidden. And those private things is what the ego wants to keep to itself, because it thinks it's an individual. So you want to get away from privacy, or it's private, and public, because public, again, is pubic. It's on the outside. The pubic hair is on the outside. And your privates are kept covered. So it's talking about sex again. It's always about sex, and it always goes back to sex. If you just be honest with yourself and there's nothing wrong with it. It's not like someone says it was blasphemy and then says Jesus Christ was a phallic. Well, if you think that's blasphemy, you don't understand who you are. How can there be something wrong with a word or a sound? It's only the only thing that's wrong with the sound is the words, is your interpretations of them, and then being bothered because you're saying a negative. And again, if you create victims, so again, when you're talking about children and children being raped or anything, or just this, I want people to think about this in depth, because you've got to go into depth of it. And if you're honest with yourself, just think, what do you think happens if you tell someone who's had an experience in their life and you tell them that how they should feel now is wrong? What happened to them was wrong, and how they should feel is this. What you've actually just done is created a victim. You've told them they are a victim. They should feel all these things and the negative things, and you should feel like this, and they are to blame, not you. They are to blame. So you create a victim, and then you've created blame. So that soul now can project all that energy that's supposed to understand who it is. That's why it's come and had these lessons. It agreed to it. That's the pledge. I pledge that I could take this experience so I will realize who I am in the end of days now. So these traumas that everybody's had, people put so much emphasis on sex. I mean, I read a post yesterday, and someone had used a posted somebody else's post, and it was on, I think it was a woman had said on a post, 16-year-olds are hotter. I think it was that. And his body just said are hotter than 26-year-olds. And then someone had shared that and saying how wrong it was. And then someone had commented on it saying, this man had said, he thinks the same thing. He got so much abuse. And I'm like, yeah, these people have got a lot of negative energy, projecting it all out. The man has an opinion. Whether you think it's right, wrong, whether him be a paedophile, doesn't affect my life. And as far as I'm concerned, a crime is only a crime once it happened. If you're saying conspiracy or to think of something, so if I had a plan to do something and then never done it, there is no crime. You can't say there's a crime because you thought about doing it. Then that's thought crime. You can't think and then criminalize thinking. The reason you can't do that is because you're not in charge of your thoughts. Thoughts are projected to you. It's part of a life script. You don't get a choice. Law will never have a bar of this. It will not accept it. Even if science proved this, which it has, even science says that you're only aware of a thought seconds after you've received the thought. It comes from your subconscious first, and then you receive. So you're never in charge of a thought. You're always 100% of the time receiving it. So you don't get a choice. So that's how it plays out. So people think, oh, well, we should judge people now and then hold them. Right? You just create a victim. You just create someone to blame. And now who's going to be the arbitrator? Who's the one who says what's right and wrong? Oh, we're going to give it up to the man. Well, that's based on a society, and that society is going to say, and based on an opinion, what's right and wrong. You can't arbitrarily say 16 is the right age to have sex. To me, if you got away with it, you've got away with what man thinks, and you go with nature. Nature says when you start bleeding, that's the age you should be able to have sex. And you've got away with all ego beliefs. And what's attractive, if you just look at it naturally, my argument with, I wouldn't say a girl's more attractive or anything like that, but from an ego perspective, how many women are buying these magazines, these women's magazines? Like Kitty pointed out, most of these models in these magazines are like 13 years of age. They're young models. I have a massive problem with that if I was an ego, because I'm like, but you're creating these images based on children. The mothers are buying the clothes for their daughters who are dressing them up like young women. Why are you doing that? And then saying that men shouldn't look at them as a woman. Well, if you want them to be looked at as a child, dress them as a child. But you can't even do that because the child's got social media and it's looking at these magazines that got these young girls in them who are dressed up like women. You buy makeup for your daughter and you're saying she's a young woman, but then you're saying men can't look at them as young women. And then you get angry at men and saying they are doing something wrong for looking at your daughter like a young woman that you've created. I don't get that. Then the biggest thing, because these are a lot of American people saying this, in America, you have beauty pageants for children. You just toddlers up like women. Makeup. What you doing? And then you wonder why you got so many pedophiles out there. You create it first, build it, and they shall come. You create this image of a child as an object of desire, and then they come, and then you wonder why. Who creates the fashion? Where do the clothes come from? Who designs the clothes? The people around you are not designing their clothes. Your children are not designing what they want to wear. It's projected to them as an idea, and then they go out and buy it, and you give them the money to go and buy it. Where did the idea come from in the first place? Who creates the If you don't get it by now, that the whole world is being, every single idea that's in your head, every single one is being projected to you by the collective ego. And the collective ego is being controlled by a few. And they know what they want in your head. And then you, like a sponge, soak it up and then project it back out like it's a thing. So when people actually think about laws and these opinions, and the reason I go on about pedophiles is because people are so passionate about it. No, don't get us wrong, I get it. I totally get it. I haven't been nonced, and I've never nonced anybody. So it's not my bag. It's everybody else who's got these opinions on it. And if you've got these opinions on it, trust us, you're going to get karma, and you don't want that karma because those judgments will be your judgments. What you're judging is yourself. To not be able to accept the world the way it is. It's not your life. You've got to have this. You've got to be able to have enough wisdom in you to know you can't change the things that you can't change. Like Rick needs to know he can't change what a volcano is going to do. A volcano is going to do what a volcano is going to do. There's some things that are outside of your power. And that's like trying to think that you can control Gaia. You can't. So I mentioned the other day, I'm going to be doing something to me that's going to be slightly different than what everyone else does about manifestation. The hypnosis I'm going to be doing on myself. It's like if you had a genie in a lamp, and a genie, and everybody's done this, you've got 3 wishes. What's one of those wishes you would wish for? Well, mine would be to have an ultimate amount of wishes. It'd be unlimited. I'd have an unlimited amount of wishes. Not unlimited, an unlimited. That would be one of my wishes. So, when you're hypnotizing yourself, you go, I desire this, and you create one thing. So I went beyond that. Why do that? Why not create your subconscious? Hypnotize yourself so you 100% of the time your conscious mind becomes your subconscious. So you're only aware of your subconscious mind all the time. Every thought you have is your subconscious, and whatever you think about, you will manifest. The reason I didn't want everybody else to do this is because you've got to be 100% control of what you want. You've got to be control of all your thoughts. If you're not, and you're on your subconscious 100% of the time, you'll start manifesting things willy-nilly that you don't want. So that's why you've got to be in control before you do these things. But that's what I'm going to be doing. And so you can manifest anything. And all I desire is for as many people to know who they are and what they're not, more so than anything else. The reason I could never be bought, you couldn't use sex, it wouldn't work, you couldn't use a woman, you couldn't use money. There's nothing you could give me that I would desire more so than sharing this truth. Obviously, I'm going to be needing things soon so we can get moving and everybody can travel to the center. And that's going to be done through a collective as opposed to corporate. So it's not going to be money. It's going to be people investing time and effort into doing this with 100% belief. Once the government's collapsed, which should be hopefully this year, the way it's going, it looks like it's going to be this year. If you look at astrology is saying the government's going to be a big change in government or control or ruling bodies this year around November time. So these things have to come. But yeah, to be a fully pledged human is to realize what you are and then to commit to it and lose everything else. And I mean, when I don't expect people to do what I've done. I don't hardly leave this land. I mean, Kitty goes to the shops, and Jay goes to the shops. Me personally, I don't leave as much as I can. I stay in here. Then I can understand my thoughts, or I can understand when I get an astrology reading. I use Astral Matrix as an app, and it says things. I can't misinterpret it because I've only got one goal, and that is to get this information out. There's only one way to do that, and that's to do things like this. So when it says that, oh, people are going to start listening to you, your message is going to get louder and things like that, I know what it's talking about. Because I'm not doing anything else. There's nothing else I could interpret. Oh, could mean that. Oh, could mean that. I've got no distractions. So this is what I do. It can only get louder. The truth can only get louder. That's all I can do. It's just volume. And hopefully more and more people will start sharing it. And it's not about numbers. I don't care about having huge followings because it's not about the following. The truth is the truth. The right people will share it. It's not going to be great numbers. But what's going to happen is when the government start to collapse and there is no belief system anymore, and that's what has to happen. There won't be any belief. And once that happens, then the truth will fill a gap. Then people have questions and they won't have answers. All these people won't have answers for them anymore. These people have been following on YouTube and they won't have answers. If you think it's in 2040 when the government collapses, what do you think is going to happen between now and 2040? Like, what, we're just going to sit around and play happy families, and everyone's going to have this truth about who they are and what they are, and just manifest. Manifest what? What are you going to manifest? What are you going to create? If everybody knew the truth of how to manifest things and to create reality like you want it, what's the world going to create? You're not going to have the system that you've got, so how are you going to create another system? And what's it going to be based on? And if it ends in 40 years, how are you going to do it that quick? That's just 20 years. So what are you going to be doing for 20 years knowing this truth? Knowing that the end's just around the corner as well. There's nothing you'll be able to create because it'll be pointless, because you know there's no point in creating it because it's going to get destroyed in 20 years. So what I'm saying, it's not 20 years, it's next year. And the reason I don't do anything is because I know it's going to get destroyed. What am I supposed to create now apart from the truth? What would be the point in getting a business or starting a business if I know it's going to be destroyed and it's going to fail and the money's going to go? What would be the point? So I don't. That's why. So, well, like I say, the proof's in the pudding. What I say is going to manifest for the simple fact I know it. The patterns say it will. And it looks like nothing's changing. This is the wettest year I've ever experienced in my entire life living in England. It's now August and it's still raining. It's like 3 months of solid rain. It's just not stopped. Where's the heat? It's not got in was before July, June. In May was one of the hottest months. June cold. Then it got to July cold again. It went down to 10 degrees for the day. 10 degrees. And I heard another video where people were talking about this global warming. It's not a global warming, it's a global cooling. It'll get warm and it'll cool. It'll cool like something not right really quick. And that's what's happening in the north. As soon as that pole shift that's happening, it's got past the 40-degree mark. The man that does this works on the globe. Nah. But it's gone past the 40-degree mark. And that's a really important mark because the flux lines start to go crazy after that. It moves quickly. Because there's nothing to stop it from moving. So that's happening as we speak. It's moving constant, and it's moving from the top to the bottom. But like I say, this time, okay, we'll touch on how the plasma event, because we'll answer this as well, how the plasma event and why it's going to happen the way it does. So if you've seen the image of the spheres, and it's just got different layers and colors going up the sphere from the plane. So the sun and moon, they started. So imagine that them layers are also the 9-step pyramid. So the sun and moon only rise up to the bottom level, the first step, for that amount of time, 60.4 billion years. It then rises up after that to the second step, and it goes to that step, and it only goes up and down every year to that step for that length of time, which is 2 billion years or something. The same for the next one, same for the next one. And it's going down, but it'll go down and up and down for the amount of time that's in that step. So every year it's going up and down. It's getting higher and higher frequency. The reason it's getting higher is pressure is being created. This is tantric sex. We'll talk about tantric sex. Tantric sex is not what people think. You've got to look at tantric sex as consciousness being raised up over time. And once you understand it like that, you'll understand what tantric sex is actually about, what that memory is actually about. And it's consciousness being raised by pressure. So the pressure under the firmament of the sun and the moon being raised up by pressure. And now it's at the highest point. Now it separates. So the lower it is, the further apart the sun and moon are. The closer they get, the higher they get, the closer they get. So once they get to the top part, because they're getting closer, because remember, it's just a projection of light. So they're not actually there. So even though the ring's the widest, it's actually the closest at the top because the firmament's there. And they're getting closer and closer together. Now, just think if you've got a positive and negative wire. And the positive is live. And it's far apart, then you get close, you get close, you get close. And once that gap's small enough, that pressure or electricity is built up and it'll jump through that gap. Right? So that's what's going to happen to the sun and moon. Now, that spark that you're going to get is the arc. Okay? So, or the plasma is going to start at that point. Now think of a light bulb. Light bulbs work because there's a gas in it, and then you put an electrode through that, and you put electricity through the electrode, and the wire doesn't burn out. The filament won't burn out, but the gas then glows. Well, that's what's going to happen on Earth. So think of the pressure, all that gas that's in there. The sun and moon's going to be the spark, and they're going to ignite the gas. And the gas is all around you, and it's not going to go anywhere. So once that pressure reaches the highest point, the sun and moon gets closest together, and they'll ignite the gas that we breathe. And that will burn, and the plasma will start arcing through that gas based on pressures, if you understand how The reason it arcs like that is because it's finding a path through the pressure. It doesn't look like there's anything there, but there is. So it finds its arc down, but that's going to arc all over the Earth, just sticking to it. So think of lightning and how big a bolt of lightning is. So it'll not be very wide. Now think of a bolt of lightning, a massive arc of lightning that's huge, not like a bolt of lightning, like a huge plasma, like a big arc that's come on the ground, and it doesn't stop. Lightning goes, and it's a spark. Now think of a plasma arc that doesn't stop. It sits. It'll just wave around on the ground and it'll melt everything. It will turn mountains back to a fluid. The Earth is going to get destroyed. And people need to understand what's coming. And at the center, that tight double helix should then create that arc that should be going straight up. We need to be in that arc. You want to be in the arc of energy that's going up and out. That's where we need to be. And that's how you leave. I think.
Thank you very much, bro. I mean, that's very well explained, if I may say so. And I mean, being fully pledged human is very, very important, because it's like you're creating this vehicle where even with the pressures and, you know, as more and more bullshit is surfacing, so that you can withstand the stench. The stench is going to be pretty.
You're going to have to watch all the pain and suffering that all the egos are going to go through. People are going to be dying left, right, and center, and you've got to be able to cope with this. Do you know what I mean? It's coming.
One thing I have noticed, you know, when you meet, I mean, it's pretty rare that we meet someone like you. But what I'm saying is that, and I say this in the most positive way, of course, is the fact that it is a game changer, because you become more conscious of the kind of impressions that a fully pledged human does. For example, my intentions. What are my intentions? I mean, I've never been one for creating a lot of bullshit, but I had picked up sort of certain stuff that had snowballed, and you thought that it was the righteous thing to do, is to share what you think at the time is the right wisdom it is. But the best knock-on effect I have is that you are in a particular frequency. You're centered, so you don't do. I feel more neutral than I've ever been. I don't go into the drama as I used to before. The temptation's always there, not anymore. You know what I mean? That's, you know, black is better than white, white's better than good or bad. You know, that ceases to exist, and that, from my perspective, is a breath of fresh air.
That is to be fully pledged human. That's to be neutral. That's to be centered. The whole play is positive and negative, and you only get the positive and negative through emotions. You can have an idea, oh, that's good and that's bad, but it doesn't matter. As soon as you add emotion into that, that's bad, and they shouldn't do that because you've added emotion. You can have the thought without the emotion. The thoughts will come to your head. So when they talk about crime, it's where you've added the emotion to it and then you've acted on it. If you have a thought just a thought. You're going to have thoughts come to your head based on your level of consciousness. You raise your game by answering questions and saying patterns. You raise your consciousness. The more high you raise it, the same questions come around, but you have different answers. You see it from a different perspective. You see a different angle of light. And from the top, you just look down and it's so simple. The brain's, the one mind's logic. It's logical. You know this because your brain uses logic to explain it. So logic, arc and tracer.
Can you talk to me a little bit more about the arc? Because in terms of it being a particular vehicle to go into a different field, if you like, altogether. So you're leaving this realm of existence and you're now, are you actually procreating something? Is it something physical again that we're creating, or is it like...
yeah, it's going to be a physical thing. The world's going to be... All it is, just think of it like a life or a human. When they die, their soul and their consciousness has to leave. That soul, that consciousness represents all of the cells together, all of them. So again, you think you're you, but your representation, you started off as a single. That was you. But now there's lots and lots of bits of you, but you're not. It's like that woman that says, she says that she doesn't see it as individual cells. Well, you're not. Just think of it as a torus. So that torus from the center, that the black dot, is going to ejaculate out or eject out light, a projection light at the very end. And so I don't know how the plasma event's going to actually work. You've got to use what you've got. And you can't use man-made things to create it, because that's not how it is. It hasn't got all these other things to it. It's just a fluid. You've got to be able to work it out through pressure. And how would that work? And you can only use the body to do it. So what happens to the soul? Well, people go up and they're looking down at themselves, and they say they go up. Yeah, they rise up off this plane. So where are they going? Where are you going? What are you? Why does your conscious feel like it's rising up? How and why? So if it's just a torus, and you're a torus, so where does the soul come out of the body? If you're a torus, does it come out of red shift? Does it come out of blue shift? Where does it come out? Well, how does the soul leave the center? Because that's where it is, in the center. How does it leave? Well, once that torus stops, like I say, if you think of like a black hole, how science shows a black hole in space, just at the horizon, you've got this tight light that squirts out. Yeah, the very center. See at the top and bottom. Well, that's your spine. Yeah, that's the vortex, the tight double helix that comes out the center, that the sun and moon are projected up and then projected out. That's what they're coming on. That's your spine. So the consciousness rises up the spine. Once it gets to the top, it comes out of blue shift and leaves. So we're on the center. We need to get to the center. The arc will go to the center, and there'll be like a tube of energy, if you like, or because the plasma is going to be arcing all over. Is how I see it work, and it'll be arcing everywhere. So think of a plasma ball. It'll be like a plasma ball, except when it's touching things, it's and it's really, really hot. And at the center is going to be double helix. So tight double helix going straight through the sun and the moon, straight up and out. And at that point, you'll have the hole at the top of the firmament where you'll go out, and you're going out into yeah. What's on the outside of the torus? Right, there's only two ideas, and I really dislike these thoughts. It's easy to work things out in the torus because you're in it, and I explain it all. Outside the torus can only work one way. Right, so it's either a universe or it's a multiverse. If it's a multiverse, you're simply one cell in another vessel. Okay, and I don't think that's the case. There's a few reasons. I don't think cells are cells. That woman says. I think it's just a torus. But that means you'd have to be within another torus. If we were in another torus and this torus is dying, then that torus has to be dying as well for this torus to die, and it wouldn't make sense. That means every fractal above that would have to be dying for the universe to end. It wouldn't make no sense. So how I see it working is there can only be an infinite plane of fluid and an infinite plane of a gas, which is the same fluid, just thinner above it. The only problem I have with that is how far down does it go? And why is there a level between the thinner gas and the fluid, thinner fluid, and the thicker fluid? Why is that there? And if that is in the middle, how high does the gas go and how low down does it go? I don't even like thinking about those thoughts because my brain, I can't get my head around that. I can't answer those questions, but it can only work one of those two ways. So it's either an infinite plane, and that's the one I go with, and there's a torus on top of the fluid. So once we leave, consciousness is going to go back to the one consciousness of all things, the one mind, because it's a gas. Then the torus will collapse back onto the fluid. Once it starts up again, the bubbles will start to rotate, and it ever collapses and starts it up, and all the bubbles stay in it, or each bubble pops, and they all popped, and it starts all over again, afresh, from a new idea, and everything from this reality is over, and it starts off afresh, and no one's got a clue about anything that happened in the last world, which could be the case. Or Gaia's consciousness goes forward and she's now in another vessel, just like we would be in another vessel. That could be the case. But the reason I don't say that is because what was the last world like? We can't even remember things from this reality, like this universe. I mean, there's civilizations that we've got no clue about. So how could you possibly work out or remember what was from another universe before this one? It would be, you just can't do it. So I would say once it starts again, this one just collapses and it's over and it ends. And it's based on resonance. So the same resonant frequencies will go over again, and then you will become, or whoever, we don't intend to come back. So whoever does come back will become the same thoughts of carrying on. So again, it depends what you think. People think consciousness is like so you. You feel like you're you, but your consciousness is arbitrary. It can be anything. It only feels like you now because you're you, but you've been lots of different yous before this one, and you felt like all of those as well. Like you feel like you now, but you're also me. It's the same mind, but because it's separated because of the torus, it makes that little dot an individuality, a molecule.
I was going to say, like,
yeah.
Not changing the subject too much, but a fully pledged human reference to it being a very powerful empath sees it through their eyes as well, in terms of the observation viewpoint, because I've always had a healthy start in life because I had this tendency of treating people the way I want to be treated. And in its nucleus, do no harm is the embodiment, and based on gratitude, to be grateful. Like right now, I'm extremely grateful to be around people like yourself, who really is siphoning and bringing the truth to the one mind, the surface, because your ulterior motive, is it to harm people? Is it to hurt people? I mean, that should be that. I don't sense that in one cell that's your objective at all. It's not to hurt anyone. So why not share,
I've got once you're a fully pledged or to be your true self, why would you want to harm anything? Again, harm comes from control. Control comes from projecting your feelings out and thinking the outside is wrong. Therefore, you need victims and blame, and then you need to control it because it's wrong, which is accept the way it is. I'm not harming anybody. And if anybody else is harming them, then they should know within themselves they shouldn't do that. I can only advise what you're doing is wrong, and what you're going to do is create karmic debt. I can't control that, though.
Yeah, and also a fully pledged human isn't going to try and persuade you into doing something. And it's, if anything, it's not trying to do anything other than being the one mind, is helping you to remember the essence of who you are, and becoming and connecting to that oneness. So it's like giving the person the ability to become independent rather than become dependent.
Yes.
And that's the way forward. So if a lot of what we're saying resonates, and I truly feel in my heart more and more people are becoming this way aligned, because they're beginning to see, pardon the expression, the bullshit is collapsing. And people who stood by things which they use very persuasive language to, like spell words and all sorts of things, to grab you, and now this is coming to an end. So it truly is an excitement, and this is the time to really come together and celebrate this oneness, this openness, this connection, and all these beautiful words that come together to bring us into grace, into communion. I'm truly, I'm very excited, and the fact that I'm able to now also to detach myself, and the greatest detachment, I would say, is my own physical body, and grabbing it in such a way, in a fearful way of, not knowing how it works and the purpose, and you break it up so well, brother. So thank you.
But that's a good thing about once you are the true you realize, well, okay, you won't do certain things. Like you can neutralize anything. You can transmute anything. So I can eat the wrong things, what you class as the wrong things, and neutralize it. Why?
What about meat though? I mean, what if? Sorry
No,
to
no.
stop.
There's
That's
certain things. I
another.
was just going to say, there's certain things that you just automatically won't do because to eat meat, something's got to die.
Yeah.
To drink alcohol, you've got to drink something that's fermented and it's at lower frequencies. Then you have to overcome it. So what's the point? Don't pour it in. You don't have to overcome it. I don't have to transmute it. In other words, I've never drank alcohol for many years now. Many over 10. I just don't like it. Never have. I used to like the effects of it, to go out and get women, but even that didn't work in the end. So nah, I don't like alcohol. But don't drink, don't eat meat. They're the two biggest things I would say. The reason being, people would say, no, you need this, you need that. Horse shit. If you need it, I'll be dead. It's as simple as that. I've got the healthiest of diets. I still live in a city. I don't grow my own food or anything like that. Food still comes from the supermarket. I'm very much in the ego world still. See, this is the thing. When people say, oh, it's all about going in the country, it's all about doing it. That's fine and dandy. Okay.
What about mind rape and things like that? I mean, it's like mind fuckery that a lot of people are doing. But that's beginning to phase itself out because people's consciousness and awareness is expanding, and people are becoming. Sorry, I don't. We are game changers in the sense that we're giving the tools. We're ultimately saying a fully pledged human will harmonize and neutralize, and that's the skill, being able to do it from that perspective. That's powerful. That's really powerful, isn't it?
You would never sell it either. You would never sell the truth. The reason I say you won't sell the truth is because you know money's going. You know what money is. You know how to manifest things. You know you manifest things through your thoughts first in your head, see the images, and it will manifest in your life. People see you do action. Bullshit. The action part of the universe will do it for you. Yeah, you are the action part of it, but you don't know how to do something. Well, depends on what you're doing. So okay, I need to manifest another mobile home. I need to manifest all the things I'm going to need to get to the center. I'm not going to go out to work and I'm not going to ask for money. So these things have to manifest just by me focus on it. The action part of it will be me sharing the truth and telling everybody what my intentions are. Then it will manifest. The universe will go, yep, done his job. Right, you need these now to go forward. It's only a play. And in that play, your character, though it hasn't got stuff, if you know your lines now because you know your character, what it's supposed to be saying because you know the character, the true you, the props that you need to continue a play will just be given to you. Remember, I did not create this laptop I'm using now to talk. I didn't make this. Sorry, mate, Kitty brought this. But someone else had to make these parts and put it all together just so it can be here right now so I can use it as a prop in my play. Same as this mic, same as everything else. They're just props and they were given to you from one way or another so you can use them in the play. What props have you got? What are you using it for? And what play are you in? Those are the questions I need to ask.
Yeah, it is. And it's powerful, man. I mean, it's this commodity, natural commodity of being organic, and to ignite the truth, the one truth, is the pinnacle, and it is one that whoever's listening and connecting. You do the connection is very, very uplifting, isn't it? It's a breath of fresh air, and you, whatever you felt you owned before, that was worthy of mention, it just completely and utterly dissolved. So reference of letting go, and it wasn't real in the first place,
Exactly.
It's another way of saying it, I guess. But
I done it yesterday. I was looking at a car and I was thinking, what is a car? But what is in the body? What would a car be represented as? But then you think about how a car works or how a computer works. Everything is the same thing. It's something going in one end and then coming out the other, going around a system of sorts with gateways. So electricity is the same. It flows around a circuit board, and you just got gateways and ways to amplify it slightly, and all that is energy flowing along it. So everything's the same thing. It doesn't matter what it is. And it's always based on the human body as well. So every invention ever made is based on the human body. The combustion engine is your stomach. And the combustion engine is just like you, when they say digesting energy or digesting food to create energy, yeah. But combustion is definitely because your stomach is chemical fire. That's what your acid is in your stomach, is chemical fire. So it's the equivalent of. But yeah, everything's just the same. It's just an extension of the vessel. So I thought of another word, right? And it's what I'm going to use now from now on. I don't care what people say. You know how the government or the police will always get you to say you're in a vehicle. And they need to say vehicle because then certain laws apply with a vehicle and you're the driver. Well, I'm not, right? So everybody needs to start saying when you're in your car, it's my vessel. Why? Because everything is a vessel. A vessel is what the mind is in to go around, and you don't travel because travel is transversing, so you don't even see you're traveling. I'm in my vessel sailing. And you go, but you're on land, yeah, when the ocean's in the mind. You're saying I'm on land, I'm saying it's in the mind. So who's right and who's wrong? But if you're speaking the truth, then your truth has to stand. And the other thing about people going to court and saying, right, I've got this book, right? In this book, it's about this sovereignty, becoming sovereign. It's wrote by just a normal one of us, not by any mason or anything like that. And he's worked out how to be sovereign, and he spent many years doing it. And in it, he's got the hierarchy of law. And all these different laws. And there's quite a few. I think there's like 12 altogether. But at the very top, you've got the mind of God, and he's got written beside it, nobody can know the mind of God. You can get a glimpse of it, but you can't know the mind of God. Now, well, that's not true because I do. That's the end of that. But if everything's below the mind of God, no matter what your claim is below that, then anybody who claims to be the mind of God is above all man-made laws, all statutes and acts, all belief, all of it. It's above it all. So no man can say you can't travel somewhere. Why not? I'm the mind of God. Of course I can. You can't stop the mind. It's the mind of God. It's above everything else. So if everybody starts claiming to be the mind of God, nothing that man says can be put on you, anything ever. Doesn't matter if it's written. Oh, it's got a court stamp. Don't care. I'm the mind of God. Piss off with your little stupid plastic wax. So none of it makes sense. Once you become the mind of God, it's all bull, and it's all based on somebody else's law. Somebody else's. That's not mine. Laws made by one man writing it down and saying everybody else got to abide by this. Well, I didn't write it, and it's not my law. It's theirs. It's only yours if you agree to it. Stop doing it. Stop agreeing to it. Make your own law up, man. Do you think it's wrong to drive at 80 miles an hour? Is that what you seriously think it's wrong? You think it's wrong to ride your bike on a path? You can do anything you want as long as you don't cause harm to somebody else. If you do, then yeah, you're going to be held accountable. But if you don't do things that cause harm, it won't cause harm. Until you do, it's fine. I'm not saying drive at 120 miles an hour down the motorway because you'll probably kill yourself. But you know what I'm saying? There's things out there people do that like, I'm saying you probably should, if you're in a car, stop at traffic lights. Don't just think, oh, my law says I don't need to stop at traffic lights, because everyone else is going to stop and you're going to create harm. So obviously you've got to use your logic and common sense when you're doing this. Don't just start doing stupid shit and thinking it's just your law and only you exist. You're going to come across pretty quick. But yeah, people need to just get away from the ego beliefs, the nonsense, and raise your own game. It's only your game. It's your play. And you can only raise yours. And if you raise it properly, you will raise other people at the same time. That's how you do it. If people stop paying gurus, man. Stop it. You don't need to go somewhere to learn these things. These things are innate. I never left the house to learn these things. I never went to see anybody. I had no master to learn it off. I just used logic. You've got a brain. Believe in yourself, not everybody else.
Absolutely.
So yeah. That's how I think, or what I think of the pledge to be the true human.
Good stuff, bro. Well, it's been wonderful again. We've gone for an hour and a half so quickly. My goodness.
This morning I was going this subject. I'm thinking I don't even know what I'm going to talk about without repeating myself. Yeah, that just slid off the tongue.
yeah. I mean, we'll work on our next one in due course, and probably invite a few people to come and get more actively involved.
That would be excellent. So if anybody knows of anyone who's got the end dates, or they think they know a guru who's got the truth, I would love them to come on to have a one-on-one, just to show what they know, and then we'll just show them a little bit higher levels of consciousness. Of course, I could be wrong. They might know the answers, but I don't think they do. They wouldn't be selling it for the start. So anyone selling the truth, anybody asking for money and Patreons and PayPal and all this bull, yeah, all of them nonsense. I'd love them to come on and to explain their side, or their truth, shall we say. That would be good.
We look forward to that. Well, it's been absolute pleasure, brother, as always.
And I hope you enjoy the rest of your birthday.
Thank you so much, and sending you lots of love, and we'll see you very, very shortly. I mean, next week or so.
Yeah. We'll have to get these more. So
more
people can
people to come in and ask some questions.
That's what I'll do a post. To see if anybody's got any questions.
I'll share it.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bioactivator would like to thank you for your kind support and donations. Through Barrett Tunian's guardianship of this platform, his activation of truth harmonizes, neutralizes, and unblocks the meridians that connect, balance, and purify all that comes in contact. Do no harm is the key that fully opens the heart's voice to be in the union of the I Am presence, and will represent every living organism on the planet whose voice would otherwise not be heard. Remember, the truth will set you free. Do no harm, cause no loss, and do not impose upon the freedom of others. Love, light, and